Yep.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on RXMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, the Olympia, just a week away. Next week, we will be setting up shop in Vegas, bringing you wall-to-wall coverage of the 2022 Olympia weekend. We have a ton of questions to get to and a lot for you to look forward to on the RX Muscle YouTube channel. Earlier today, we dropped the Road to the Olympia interview with Hunter Labrada. Earlier this week, interview with Sonny Andrews, Dr. Sonny Andrews. Last week, we had an interview with Samson Dauda. Dave earlier today recorded interviews as well with Antoine Vaillant, Oris Kalasinski, and a full comprehensive preview with Dennis James, including some exclusive insights into what we could expect so far, or what he's seen so far out of Big Ramy and what we could expect on the stage next week. Let's go right into the questions. The first 2 questions on this show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, Dave, the amount of steroids, milligrams of each compound depends on the weight of the bodybuilder or just a set amount for everyone?
Well, you can't really say it's a set amount for everyone because people's bodies do, more or less respond slightly differently. Like I know guys that can use a lot less gear and get good results, and I know other people that need more gear. The problem, the great equilibrizer, I always say, or equalizer, is the fact that we don't know if the gear is dosed properly. So a lot of guys think they need more than they do, and it's because they're using weak gear, and it's hard to tell. I mean, you can tell with testosterone and DECA now and tren and Anthate, because we can use the semi-quantitative tests that I sell, the Roy test kits at DavePalumbo.com. They will actually tell you how much of the gear is in there. So if you test your testosterone and Anthate, it comes out real testosterone and Anthate. Then you use the semi-quantitative test on it. You can actually see, is it 100 milligrams per ml? Is it 200? You'll know if it's dosed properly. But assuming that your gear is dosed properly, okay, people are pretty much in the same cat. If you're a 250-pound guy, you probably need, 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of testosterone a week. So if you're a 180-pound man, you probably still might do well from 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams a week of testosterone, depending on what your level of experience is, how long you've been using gear. So just because you weigh 300 pounds doesn't mean you need to take 2,000 milligrams of testosterone. And just because you're a 150-pound man doesn't mean you should only take 250 milligrams of testosterone, because that's kind of a replacement dose. So there is a little bit of a leeway of where you kind of fit in, but there is an effective dose of gear. And with testosterone, I think it happens to fall in that 1,000 to 1,200 milligram range if you want to get maximum results with kind of like the minimal side effects. So because once you go over 1,200, you get more fluid retention, you get more estrogen, aromatization. You get a lot more sides, but you don't really get more benefits at that point, at least in my experience, and I've been doing this a long time. So to answer the question, I know it's a little bit of a shifty answer, but the dosages are pretty much given depending on what your body weight is. However, there is some wiggle room.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Regarding aspartame, is the methanol component anything to be concerned about? Heard it can be toxic at high enough levels.
Yeah, methanol is wood alcohol, and it is poison. You ever hear these stories about these alcoholics? They can't afford booze, and they start drinking methanol, or methyl alcohol, and they actually can actually die from that. But to be honest with you, and I always have a course called the Smart Personal Training Certification course. I've been giving it for 25 years online, and a lot of people get certified by me on a yearly basis. And one of the quotes I put in the booklet that you get with the course is it was in Scientific American in like 1990 something or another. I pulled it out of there, and it's been in the book for 25 years since I've been running the course, and it shows the relevance. They're like, yes, it is true that, you know, the methyl bond or something like that in aspartame can convert to methanol, and the methanol can convert to formaldehyde, which is really the scary compound, right? Because we think formaldehyde, that's what they preserve bodies with, you know, dead bodies with. Yes, that conversion is possible, but the amount that would occur, the amount of methanol and formaldehyde that would actually be formed if you drank like 300 cans of diet soda is still less than what you find in one orange. Think about that. So one orange contains more methanol, more formaldehyde than what you would get from 300 cans of Diet Coke. And certainly an orange is not toxic, right? So once again, are these compounds in there? Yes, but they're in such minute amounts that there's no relevance. I mean, if you eat a piece of fruit, okay, or you eat a potato that's grown in the ground, there's lead in there, there's arsenic, there's all kinds of terrible things in there, but they're microscopic amounts, teeny tiny trace amounts in there. You can't get rid of them. It's in the soil. That's what it is, you know, but it doesn't affect us because it's so dilute. So people get worked up over this stuff, but the truth of the matter is that aspartame, which is NutraSweet, it's also known as, is still in diet sodas here in the United States because it's probably the best tasting. As far as if you're going to put a sweetener in something that's like hot, because the aspartame will break down in heat a little bit, it loses some of its flavor. Splenda is much better if you're going to put it in something that's heated up. And I like Splenda. I think Splenda tastes as close to sugar as anything, and that's why we use it. And most people, probably 90% of the supplement companies out there, use it in all their protein powders to flavor the protein because it is really good. But aspartame is not killing anyone. Now, if you were to eat 400 packets of that stuff, in a row, you might actually get a little bit of a headache. That used to happen back in the day. We used to diet really hard for shows, and I would get the powdered NutraSweet or aspartame, and I would just you'd spoon it in your coffee or whatever. But sometimes you get really desperate, you'd be starving, you'd be like, you take a spoonful of it, and if you ate too much of it, you literally can get a headache from it because they're amino acids. Aspartame is a phenylalanine and aspartic acid. So when you add too much of those amino acids and they cross the blood-brain barrier, you can get, you can mess up the ratio of all the aminos in your body. So you don't want to take in massive amounts of it. Nothing in massive amounts can be good for you. You take too much vitamin C, you can give yourself a stomach ulcer. So once again, it's all about balance. And these questions are very good, these first two questions, and they are from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. It's a great resource if you guys want to sign up for that. It's $29 a month. You get access to all my videos, all my writings. We put up a workout every single week. You can try out new workouts every week we put up. I answer everyone's questions. So if you're an app member, you can ask a question and I will post it in an open forum on the app so everyone sees everyone's questions, everyone's answers, so that it's a learning experience. And I do a Q&A video exclusively for the app every single week. So great value, $29 a month. You sign up at the iTunes store or the Android store, telling you a great stocking stuffer.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us there, we're going to have content for days over the course of the next week. During the actual shows, prejudging and finals, we're going to be taking pictures literally during the contest, posting them on our Instagram, on our feed, on our stories, anything and everything that we do, anyone that we talk to around town on Olympia weekend, you're going to see it there. And then obviously, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything over the course of the next 10 days. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button. And as always, we appreciate your support. Instagram, by the way, official_RX Muscle. Let's take a couple of Olympia-related questions from Hinkle JD. And I think this is one of those mystery wild cards. It seems like a lot of competitors, the opinions vary so wildly. But realistically, Derek Lunsford making his open class debut, where do you see him placing in his rookie campaign in the open class?
This is it's a tough question, and Dennis James and I were talking about this today. I interviewed him. That predictions video will be up probably today, Sid? Tomorrow?
No. So probably tomorrow.
Okay.
Just we need to work on a couple of things with the interview, but just to figure out if we're going to be doing it in segments or yeah.
Well, Dennis James and I, we're trying to figure out where Lunsford fits into this equation. And, he could be as high as second, or he could be out of the top six. I think he has the ability to absolutely be a top six bodybuilder, his first Olympia. After all, it's his first time in the open class, but he's an Olympia champ in the 212 class. So it's not like the guy's a chump, that's just coming up. He's a well-seasoned guy, with a really, really beautiful physique. The question is, how will he look stacked up next to these other guys? Will he be shredded as he was in the 212 in the open? Those are all questions we don't know. I say if he comes in the best shape of his life, he's top six.
Ivan Banyan, you say FIBERLYZE has no digestible carbs, but it has 60 calories per serving. Where are those calories coming from?
You got to remember, carbohydrates, when you figure out caloric, what they're calorically worth, the fiber is still a carbohydrate. It's just an unabsorbable carbohydrate. So there's 60 calories in those carbs if they were absorbable, but they're not absorbable. So there's really 0 calories. I don't know what the technical rules are. I think you have to still put it's caloric, even though you're not absorbing any of it. So it's essentially 0. Anytime you see the way they list food labels on whether it be a supplement or they list it on foods, is they put total carbs, they put fiber carbs, sugar carbs, and then when you subtract the fiber from the total carbs, that's what we call net carbs. So when something is 0 net carbs, it means nothing's being absorbed. If it was 1 net carb, then you would be getting 4 calories out of it. But we're getting no calories out of the FIBERLYZE product because it's all not absorbed, and that's just the way it goes. There's a lot of weird labeling law stuff, and that's why people get confused. They're like, "Oh, I'm dieting. Can I take FIBERLYZE?" Of course you can, because it's not absorbed. None of it is absorbed. It's 0 calories in terms of what you're actually absorbing from your body. But like bacteria can ferment that stuff, so it's energy for bacteria. If you were feeding bacteria in a petri dish, they can ferment it all. But humans cannot.
Take another Olympia-related question from Carlos Fit NYC. Brandon Curry's coach recently said that Brandon will be on stage at this year's Olympia weighing 255 pounds compared to last year, where he weighed 242. And, we've seen some of the recent pictures. Tough to always tell exactly the timeline, but he does look like he's put on size. So the question is, thoughts on this? Can he win being heavier, shredded, and in good condition? Obviously, a lot of things are going to have to come together for that, but just your thoughts on him potentially being over 10 pounds stage weight as compared to last year.
If the 10 pounds was solid muscle, okay, obviously it would look better, right? And he would do better because he's a freak anyway, and he's got great proportion. 10 pounds on that frame will look like 20 pounds. Problem is, Brandon's over 40 years old, or maybe just turned 40. He's not putting on 10 pounds of muscle, in 1 year. And it's less than a year, because remember, he competed at the Arnold. So it's probably unlikely that it's going to be 10 good pounds. Probably more than likely it'll be 4 to 5 pounds. And if he does 4 to 5 pounds, I still think that will look impressive on his frame. His big thing is, I know they keep saying fuller. He's got to be shredded. If he doesn't come in shredded, it's going to be a disaster for him, I think. And he might not even make the top 3. So he's got to worry about conditioning, because he's not going to be bigger than Big Ram. He's not going to be bigger than Nick Walker. He's got to come in and be Brandon Curry, the best Brandon Curry he can be. And if he does that, I think he could be second or first. I think that he's still the second best guy in that lineup. It's a matter of whether he's going to bring his best look. If he doesn't, it's going to be bad for him, because he's going to get outsized by a lot of these guys, and he's not going to be able to wow them with his shape, because he's not going to have the conditioning he needs to. So he has to come in shape.
Let's go to Evan at large. In your experience, your opinion, is there a minimum effective dose of testosterone to prevent the most muscle loss during a cruise phase?
Any of you guys watch the show on a regular basis know that I do not endorse cruising or bridging or whatever else you want to call it. When you go off, you go off. Okay? If you eat right and you train right, you will not lose muscle. What you will lose is you will lose fluid retention that you get. And that some of that fluid retention from steroids is good fluid retention, meaning the muscles are volumized. You will lose some blood in your body because remember, steroids cause the bone marrow to produce more red blood cells. While you're off, that's not going to happen. Now, the blood cells do have a 180-day lifespan, but some of them might be mid-cycle, so you're going to lose some blood. And when you lose blood, you lose blood volume, so you might not have as good a pump. So that's what people perceive as muscle loss. But in 8 weeks or 9 weeks, whatever you're going to be off, you ain't losing any muscle if you eat right and you train right and you rest right. Okay. If you do, what happens is these guys, they go off, they feel depressed. They're like, it's not even more. They don't go to the gym or they only go a couple days a week. They don't eat right. They miss meals. They're like, I'll start eating, my 8 meals or 7 meals a day once I get back on the gear. And those are the people that lose muscle. Those are the people that get fat. Okay. Because they're not continuing to do what they did while on cycle. If you were on cycle 365 days a year, you wouldn't be slacking like that. Don't use it as an excuse to slack. Train harder, rest more, eat better, eat more, because your body needs more resources when you don't have the anabolics there to kind of pick up the slack. There's no reason to lose any muscle over 7 to 9 week off period.
Let's go to Excellent 187. Do intra-workout carb drinks really work considering how long glycogen storage takes? What would you suggest for main energy levels if one is a high volume trainer?
Yeah, you're not really using an intra-workout, carb drink, whether it be a Gatorade or coconut water or, cyclodextrin or myCarbolize. You're not using that to reglycogenate muscles. You're using it to actually have glucose in the bloodstream to use right there. So if you're sipping a Gatorade and you're absorbing the sugar in the Gatorade into your bloodstream, your body's using that as energy. It's not, storing it as glycogen and then pulling the glucose out of glycogen storage. That would be, completely, useless, or a waste of energy for your body. So your body's using what you're sipping. That's why I tell people when you're dieting, don't be sipping branched chain amino acids the whole workout, because instead of using stored, energy, or mobilizing fat from the fat cells, your body's going to wind up using, the amino acids and turning those into glucose. So there's no free calories, but that's basically how the body works. So whatever the carb you're sipping on, that's what you're going to be using for fuel.
Let's go to Christoph. Now, this is something that you've maintained, obviously, one stance as far as training volume from single body parts. His question takes the angle of, I guess, for younger people, and I guess if you want to expound upon as maybe more inexperienced people looking to get into in weightlifting in general, can younger people train more often and grow muscle?
That's a tough question because not everyone is the same, right? I mean, I've seen guys who can train 6-7 days a week and recover. I don't know how they do it. They always respond better if they don't train that much, but they can. I was the kind of guy that I came from a running background, and runners never take days off. We run 7 days a week. You don't ever take a day off. And if you do, you'll start telling your friends, I haven't run in a month, because you missed one day. It's like a guilt complex. It's like you have to go because it's like you get a fix. You get a high from running. It's called runner's high. You get an endorphin release when you're doing it. So you hate the idea of having to go out and do that run. It's like, I can't believe I got to run. It's freezing cold out, or it's stifling hot, or whatever. It's raining. I don't want to go out. And then, as soon as you get out there and run the first half mile sucks. You just feel terrible. Doesn't matter, how good of a runner you are. Once all of a sudden, when they call that second wind kicks in, which is when your endorphins really get released, it's like instantly high. You're like, oh my God, this is awesome. And that's just that runner's mentality. So when I switched to bodybuilding, I have the same. I'm training every day, right? Because I want to get big fast. Little did I know that if you don't rest in bodybuilding, you don't grow, right? So I made all those mistakes too. And I just wasn't putting size on. I looked better, my body was changing, but I was not growing. And I was eating a lot of food too. Once I started taking days off and I noticed, holy mackerel, I'm actually putting size on now. They were right. And then I had to cut my volume down because I was doing like 2.5, 3 hour workouts in the gym because I thought, that's the way everyone did it. And so when I cut that volume back, I grew again. So you kind of have to figure out what works for your body. Some people can handle more volume than others, but that doesn't mean you should be doing it. If you can get away with less and get more out of it, you're going to recover better and you're going to be able to train harder and heavier. That's another thing I noticed. When I trained more volume and I trained more frequently, I wasn't that strong. My strength was kind of capped off. When I started resting more and doing less volume, my strength went up through the roof and I couldn't believe it. And of course, if you're lifting heavier, you're going to grow better. So don't overdo it.
We're getting a lot of ideal dosage questions. One from Alexander Yaramazov. I'm considering starting IGF-1 LR3. What would be a dose for someone who has never taken it? I mean, he's asking you also, how is it used?
Yeah, I've talked about IGF-1 before. And, I think what people don't realize with IGF-1 is that more is not better. Matter of fact, less is better because when IGF-1 is a protein hormone, just like GH is. And it has to bind to receptors on the outside of the cell. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Whereas steroidal compounds go right through the cell membranes and they bind to androgen receptors in the nucleus of the cell, which is the brain of the cell. And it tells the nucleus to the DNA essentially start making more protein. Well, IGF-1 does something similar, but it binds to what we call cytoplasmic receptors, or the receptors around the outside of the cell. The number of IGF-1 receptors are dictated by damage to the muscle. So if you train bicep muscles, that day, and you break down a lot of tissue here, if you take a shot of IGF-1 post-workout, which is when you take it normally, those molecules, those hormones will go to the receptors that are the most plentiful in the body, which are going to be the ones that were just on the muscle cell that was just damaged, and it'll bind to them. If you start taking too much IGF-1 and upping the dosage from 20 micrograms to 40 to 60 to 100 micrograms per day, what that's doing is it's flooding the receptors with so much IGF-1 that the body thinks it's going to overdo itself. So it reduces and pulls back IGF-1 receptors. And now the body, you can take all the IGF-1 you want. You're not going to respond at all or you're going to respond very weakly because you have less IGF-1 receptors. So it's important with IGF-1 to take less, and you don't do it all the time. So you do the routine I usually give people is 10 to 20 micrograms post-workout for 4 weeks in a row, and then take 4 weeks off. 4 weeks in a row, 4 weeks in a row, take 2 weeks off. 4 weeks in a row, 2 weeks off, and just rotate it like that. Those 2 weeks will allow your IGF-1 receptors to restore themselves. By taking a maximum of 20 micrograms per day, you're never going to really shut down those receptors too much because you're not overwhelming the body with IGF-1. I know IGF-1 is a lot cheaper. You can afford to take more than you would take with GH, but more is not better. More is worse for IGF. It will shut down your ability to respond to this drug.
Take a couple of more questions. Lomna Sachdeva, another training related question. How long would you take rest or back off from training altogether if you strain but not tear? I mean, he specifically mentions bicep. I don't know if you want to maybe take it to any other muscle area groups.
Mm-hmm. I have injured muscles before. Never tore anything until I slipped on a staircase, in 2012. But the truth of the matter is that, everyone's a little different, I guess, and when you're working out, whether it be biceps or triceps or chest, you have to know where the line is, with your body. If you're going to go too heavy, you're going to tear, I just lost track of it. What was the question again, Sid? What was he asking specifically about? Sid, I lost you. Hold on.
No.
Oh.
Muted myself. Yeah, no. My son brought home something from school, obviously. So now
what was the original question?
The question was, if you strain but not tear a bicep.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
yeah. How long would you back off? How long would you,
Yes.
I guess, rest if not back off from training altogether?
Okay. Now, if you didn't tear it, then obviously you probably, a strain really is a tear. It's a very small tear, obviously. Whereas a tear, the way we would define it as bodybuilders, is something got, ripped in half. But by and far, a strain is a minor tear. Okay. And so it's really going to be dependent on pain and, scar tissue buildup. And what I tell people to do is always try to give that body part like at least 48 hours rest, and then start to lightly massage that area to break. You don't want scar tissue building up, because once scar tissue builds up, if you train it, that scar tissue is going to tear and it's going to be uncomfortable. So to prevent it from building up, to begin with, after 48 hours, you can get light tissue massage. Probably after a week, you want to do deep tissue massage to break up the rest of it. And so by the next, the next run of workouts, if you're training each body part once a week, you should be able to train it lightly. So the first one back, you go lightly. If it doesn't hurt, the following week, you go a little heavier. By the third workout, you should be up to your natural weight again. If it is hurting you while you're training it and you feel it, then back off again and give it more time. If it feels great, doesn't mean to go push it right up to max again, because you could re-tear it. So it's a 3-week, I usually say it's a 3-week rehab, but you're still training. You're just not training at maximal weights.
The real Nick Lucas, what type of fish do you think is best for prep and why?
Good question. I, alternate. When I create a diet for people, I have like a fatty protein meal, and then I have a lean protein meal, and I break those two meals into separate constituents, because on the fattier protein meal, I don't really need to add a lot more fat to the meal. I might add some carbs, but I don't need more fat. Whereas the lean protein meals that have their protein sources that have low fat in them, like chicken breast and turkey breast and white fishes, I would definitely add a fat source, whether it be some avocado or macadamia nut oil or some nuts or some whatever the case may be. I usually add more fats to that. So if you're going to eat fishes that are in a leaner category, like cod, and cod's great because most of it's wild caught, whereas tilapia, most of it's farm raised, not so good for you. I like cod, flounder, fluke, any kind of white fish like that qualifies as being something that's acceptable. And tilapia is fine; it's just not the healthiest, but it still has the same protein and fat content. It's just, once again, it's a matter of, you want good fats, bad fats in there, whatever the case may be. So if you're going to go with a fattier fish, because that's the meal you're having, I think salmon is like the gold standard for fish for a bodybuilder, because it's got really good quality essential fatty acids, especially if you're eating wild salmon. Wild caught salmon is much better. Farm raised salmon, not quite as good. The fatty acid sources are not as good in there because they're feeding these fish, corn basically, which sucks. They're supposed to be eating algae in the wild and other fish and stuff like that. So I usually buy like big bags of not even that big. Maybe there's like 10 pieces in there of wild caught salmon at Sam's Club, which is owned by Walmart. It's like $24. I think you get like 10 or 12 pieces in there. It's very reasonably priced for about a 6-ounce piece of wild caught salmon. It's the sockeye salmon, which is some people like the Atlantic salmon better because it's got more fat and it's a little softer. I like the sockeye. I think the sockeye is much, much healthier for you, but either way, it's the same thing. So I like salmon for fatty fish, cod for like a white fish.
This question specifically about synthol usage in Brazil. What do you think, I guess, the reasoning is? They put it all over their body, extremely ridiculous. Do you feel as if there is a problem with synthol amongst not just Brazilian bodybuilders, but I guess, obviously, we've seen the pictures. We saw, what was that guy's name who recently passed away? They called him not synthol guy, but I'm forgetting his name.
Solomon something or another, isn't it?
Yeah, it was something synthol, right? But from everything everything you've heard, everything you've seen, do you feel as if there is a synthol problem amongst the Brazilian bodybuilding scene?
The problem is that synthol, the way it was originally intended, which was made by Chris Clark, he was the guy who invented it. May he rest in peace. He's not with us anymore. And Chris Clark it was a precise precision type of stuff you put in. I used to sell it all the time on my Dave Palumbo website. I still have some of the painless pumps left from Steve DeLuca, who also passed. So both guys are gone. But those products are not what they're using in Brazil. Okay, because you would go broke injecting. They would be the guys in Brazil injecting a whole bottle into their arm, essentially. So they're going out and buying, like, I don't know if it's motor oil, but they're buying synthetic oils in like stores that are not meant for any kind of injection or even any consumption. It's like stuff you would put in a car engine or something like that. And these people are nuts. They're injecting it all over their body. And I don't think this only applies to Brazil. I think it happens in a lot of countries. John Romano told me you see it in Mexico all the time too. So people are just completely consumed with big arms, or whatever the case, whatever, shoulders or I don't know, pecs, and they inject the stuff like retards. It has nothing to do. It's not even synthol. Like I said, it's not synthol. They'll inject anything basically. If you gave them like a tub of Crisco oil, they'd probably inject that into their body too. These people have mental problems that do this, and you've seen these distorted pictures. They look ridiculous, and it's not just a Brazilian thing. Now, the women in Brazil are into the big butts. So that's the look down there. So I think a lot of them get those Brazilian butt lifts, which are where they inject the fat from your body into your butt. They also do, other stuff like butt implants and all kinds of crazy shit that goes on down there. But that's not just in that country. It's in Mexico, and it's probably will work its way to the United States, and it's here already. I've seen, there's a lot of women and celebrities that have Brazilian butt lifts and stuff like that. And if that's what you want to do to your body, fine. But at least go to a doctor and have it done, sterilely, with some sort of, science behind it. Because you start injecting stuff you're buying in the supermarket that's not sterile, you're looking to die.
Last question from Billy Bob, and we just interviewed him a couple of days ago. Actually, by the time that this episode goes up, this interview will be live with Hunter Labrada. Is it just me, or does it seem as if everyone is overlooking Hunter Labrada? No respect, or am I just missing it?
This is another person we talked about with Dennis James. Matter of fact, I almost I just interviewed Hunter too, and I almost forgot when we did the preview to mention him, and then I threw him in. We did him at the end, and Hunter's one of these guys that if he comes in shape, he could be as high as third. If he's off and he looks like he did last year, which was not good. I thought he got I like Hunter, but I think he got a gift last year at fourth place. But in his defense, he does seem to look better in person than he does in pictures, but he was very watery last year. But if he comes in tight this year, he's going to be very difficult to beat because he's got more size this year. He's got really good shape and structure. He's a good poser. I think he can do really well. But if he comes in a little off or a little watery, he's going to be out of that top six. They're not going to give him a gift this year. He's going to have to earn whatever he gets this year. And I think he has every intention of bringing a much better look to the stage, especially after talking to him. He seems very confident and cool and collected. So I think we're going to see a really good Hunter Labrada. Once again, we don't know who's going to come in shape and who's not. Guaranteed there'll be at least 30 to 50% of the people in that lineup will not be in their best shape, which leaves those guys out of the top six. So you might see some of your best guys that you think are going to be second, third, fourth. They may be out of the top six, and you might have new guys, and there are other guys that actually you didn't think were going to come in at their best. Like I was talking to Antoine Vaillant today. He's a guy no one's talking about. He could easily come in. I was talking to the other day, what's his name? Charles Griffin.
Charles Griffin, yeah, yesterday.
He's looking ridiculous too. He put on like probably 10 pounds since his last show. So he could be another dark horse. So there's a lot of guys that can step into those spots if people come in, if the favorites come in off. And we're going to see some of those favorites off. I can promise you that.
I would just say this on a closing note. We tend to make our Olympia predictions based off what we saw last year, right? Obviously, it's just because there's going to be that shroud of mystery, despite whatever it is that we see on Instagram and progress pictures. I mean, that's someone standing individually. You don't see them next to anyone. So that's almost a basis point, right? Okay, what happened last year? Who figures to have gotten better? And then based off that, what will we see this year? But I just think that given the head count and given just the sheer quality of competition, undoubtedly, you're going to have a ton of surprises at this Olympia. And again, Hunter Labrada, just a bit of a teaser. In the interview, he does say that his prediction is that the top 5 from last year, that those 5 will still be in the top 5, that he did name a couple of wild cards who would crash the party. But I just think there's going to be so many things that are going to happen that we didn't expect. There's going to be someone who ends up in 6th place. We didn't expect to see them there. Someone who's going to get into the top 5. We didn't expect to see them. Someone falls out of the top 5. We didn't expect them to fall out of the top 5. So a lot of mystery, but it makes for a lot of excitement. And on that note, right now on the RX Muscle YouTube channel, again, the aforementioned interview with Hunter Labrada. We are going to chop up the discussion that Dave had with Dennis James earlier. A lot of rich content. And Dennis James, obviously highly opinionated, does not hold anything back. So a lot of good information. So we'll release that in segments.
And he's living with Ramy right now. So there's no one who's going to get better insight into Ramy, I can promise you that, than Dennis James.
Charles Griffin made an appearance on After Hours yesterday. We will post that separately as well. We had Blessing Awodibo. It was hilarious. I mean, there might not be another active bodybuilder, or at least an active bodybuilder in the elite class of bodybuilding that's a better fit for that show than Blessing Awodibo. Maybe Antoine Vaillant, who we just had on earlier.
Yeah, Antoine could have been on that show for sure.
Yeah. And then we had Urs Kalasinski, someone who many people are, expecting big things out of in the Classic Physique division, making his 2nd appearance at the Classic Physique Olympia. So chock full of content, Olympia-related content right now on the channel and over the course of the next few days. And then, of course, next week we'll be in Vegas. We'll be loading up our YouTube channel, our Instagram feed. So if you haven't already subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Follow us on Instagram, _RX Muscle. We're going to be posting stuff on there throughout the course of the week. And then, of course, during prejudging, during the night shows, we're going to be loading it up with contest photography, video clips, the like. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Here's another one. I want to just throw another little gem at people, since they like all these little Olympia tidbits. I was talking to Urs Kalasinski, and he said that right before we did the interview, he was on the phone with Marcus Rule. And Marcus told him, he says, he really respects him and appreciates his physique. And, Urs is only 24 years old.
Yeah, young guy.
And Marcus says, if you go to the open class and qualify for the Olympia, I will fly with you from Germany to the Olympia and help you out. So that's, I said, well, Urs, is that possibility? He goes, well, I'm trying to take one step at a time now. But think about it. In 4 years from now, when he's 28 years old, in the prime of his bodybuilding career, he could be, a serious open bodybuilder if he wanted to,
So once again, we have taken someone from the Classic Physique division and left that door wide open as far as whether or not they have a future in the open class. Right. But before we even get on the stage, we've already opened the door to that speculation. But nonetheless, it's funny because last year, before we wrap, I was sitting next to Dennis Wolf during prejudging of Classic Physique, and obviously both Dennis and Urs German, and Dennis Wolf was telling me all these little tidbits about Urs, and I mean, he was like yelling instructions in German. It was just really like cool to see him so in the moment in that. And you see Dennis Wolf, and that's someone else that we're hoping to catch up with next week in Vegas. Who was he working with? He was working with Vlad Suruchko. I'm probably butchering that name, but I mean, so obviously he's very much involved. So I'm sure we'll run into Dennis Wolf as well. We were supposed to get him on the night show wrap up last year too, so hopefully we'll make that happen.
Urs has got like a really thick German accent, like a typical, but he speaks perfect English because everyone speaks English in Germany. But Dennis Wolf has completely lost his German accent. If you notice, he sounds like an American. I don't know how he did. He completely has gotten rid of the German accent. I can't even tell he's from Germany anymore. And he had a really thick German accent for many years.
So, but hopefully we do get a chance to catch up with Dennis Wolf. Hopefully we'll get a chance to catch up with a lot of people next week in Vegas, and whoever we do talk to, will be sure to document it for you. It's going to be a lot of fun. We can't wait to take you along for the ride in Vegas, the return to Vegas for the Olympia. That'll do for this show. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.
Take care.